Let's talk about Kenyan tribes and how they worshipped God before Christianity. Number one is Kikuyu. The Kikuyu call God Ngai or Mulungu. They worship through sacrifices. Kirinyaga was a sacred place. They faced the mountain while praying and raising their hands. The Kamba call God Ngai or Mulungu, who lived in the sky. Maimu acted as an intercessor between them and Ngai Mumbi. They were remembered in family rituals, offerings, and libation at individual altars. The Kalenjin called God Assis, which symbolized the sun. Spirits of departed ancestors were also revered and sacrifices were made in their honor. The Iteso called God Edeke or Apak. They believed God was the Emuron, healer of all diseases, diviner, and prophet. The Luya called God Were and also Nyasaye. They worship God through intermediaries, spirit of dead relatives. Spirits were considered positive and violent, and thus they were appeased through animal sacrifices like goats, chicken, and cattle. The Luo called God Nyasaye. They worship through the avenues of prayer, offerings, and sacrifices. The Taita called God Mulungu. They believed in God and ancestral spirits called the Milimu, whom they called upon in times of calamities and misfortunes. They sacrificed goats or sheep. The Taveta called God Mulungu. They called him upon the times of calamities and misfortunes. Evidence of their worship is in caves in Taita Hills. The Mijikenda believed in idols called Koma, and they offered sacrifices weekly. The Pokot called God Tororok. They communicated with their deities through prayer and sacrifices. The Boran called God Wak. Their religion was based on veneration of deities and spirits. Their worship was directed to gods. The Swahili called God Mungu. They advocated for animal and bird sacrifices. It was believed animals' blood appeased God. The Gala, they worshipped gods and goddesses at local shrines and temples. The Turkana called God Akuj. They believed Akuj resides in the sky and on top mountains. Animal sacrifices were offered both to Akuj and spirits. The Rendile worshipped Wak. They believed in the single God of early pre-Abrahamic faith. The Samburu called God Nkai. They believed in charms and they had traditional rituals for fertility, protection, healing, and other needs. They believed God lived in Mount Marsabit. The Kipsigis called God Cheptalel. They practiced monotheism, worship of one supreme God. The Giriama called God Mulungu. They worshipped in Kaya shrines. The Nandi called God Assis. They presented prayers early in the morning and evening under sacred trees. The Somali called God Wak. They believed in veneration of deities and spirits. The Abagusi called God Engoro. The Kisi called God Enkoro. They all worshipped ancestral spirits called Ebirecha. The Maasai called God Enkai. Animal entrails were offered to Enkai as a sacrifice and are mentioned in prayer text. The Embu called God Mwenenjeru, meaning honor of the sun. Prayers and sacrifices were offered. The Meru used to say prayers during gatherings and meetings. Prayers happened before sunrise and evening, soon after sunset, facing the sun. The Kenyan Arabs called God Allah. Their prayer was directed to gods and goddesses. An example of a goddess is Hubal. It was based on veneration of deities and spirits. The Gabra believed in benevolent god Waka. They offered animal sacrifices and ritual prayers. The Sakuye called God Wak. They worshipped one god by putting sacrifices on special trees. The Tharaka offering sacrifice to God was a cardinal aspect of their worship and prayer. The Somali called God Ilahi. They worshipped in ordinary religious temples and place of worship called Zero. Important rituals are conducted under the guidance of priests called Wadad. Sabaoth called God Assis. They used the dead forefathers as mediators between the living and God. The Orma practiced traditional religion and ancestor worship. They believed God was associated with the sky. The Ilchamus, their worship was based on veneration of deities and spirits. The Gusha worshipped various gods and goddesses. The Konso, which called God Waka, also believed in veneration of deities and spirits. The Almolo called God Wak or Wak. They offered sacrifices and prayers to God. The Dasenat believed in veneration of deities and spirits. The GAJEEL practiced monotheism, the worship of one God. The LEYSAN practiced Arabian polytheism. The BURJI practiced veneration of deities and spirits. Kindly subscribe, like, share, and tell me which one is your tribe. And tell me also which tribe had a good information about God. Kindly like, subscribe, and share it to your friends. Let's meet in the next video. Bye.